Hi, friends. Welcome to episode 68. It's Tuesday. Seriously? Tuesday? And I'm up the barn midweek. Reason is all the school kids are off and we don't need to be running as many school buses this week. Well, we don't need to run any. So why not spend some time down here? I've got a little bit of news on that fuel pump. Overnight, Dave at Diesel Injection Services, blah, 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 sent me a update on where he was with rebuilding the fuel pump. So that's probably not going to take as long, I hope, as we initially thought. Hopefully also today, with the weather staying really nice, there's not a cloud in the sky at the moment. I know I've said that before, and then an hour or so later, there's loads of clouds. It starts to tip down with rain. Well, hopefully that's not going to happen today. If it doesn't, then I'm going to have a go at putting the almost final or the penultimate coat of paint onto those ceiling panels, because I do want to get that out of the way. And then hopefully over this Easter, I do want to start removing the near side of the RT. So that's going to be quite a major project, but I am looking forward to that. Yeah, should be fun. So stick around, let's see how we get on. Okay, so 2 bonus days as a result of the Easter holidays, and there'll be some more next week too. Now, the problem with that fuel pump, and I'll give you an update on that later on, is obviously a bit of a setback, and I had hoped to finish this area at the front of the bus and then move on to other projects, because I really don't want to have lots of projects on the go, because it gets a bit disheartening after a while. But there's nothing I can do now. I've got to stop. I've got a couple of minor issues to do in the engine compartment. One of them being that fuel tank little auxiliary fuel tank that sits on the bulkhead, plus the fact I want to get the bulkhead sprayed up and finished, and then that should wrap that for a while. But talking about wrapping, I now need to wrap the front of the bus to protect those areas that I've been working on recently. One, to reduce the amount of dust getting in there, and two, to stop anything else getting in there just while I'm working around this area of the bus. So there we are. Let's get started with this weekend, or this actually weekend, these 2 days projects. I'm pleased to say we're pretty much getting there. These are the 4 main interior panels propped up against 1804. I'd given them a wash and wiped them over with a thing called a tacky cloth. It's supposed to take all the dust off and stuff like this. So I was really quite happy with them. So they're prepped ready for spraying, and I need to remove 1804 from the workshop before I start on them. But there was this minor disaster with this panel. This is panel number 4, which is the panel that you'll see as soon as you enter into the bus. Now, if you have a look around the outside, that looks really quite nice, doesn't it? It's got a lovely reflection, everything looks good and dandy. Unfortunately, there was a little imperfection in the wood, and I've tried filling it, I've messed around with it, and I've put extra paint on it. I've done almost everything I can think of, and it still keeps appearing. So I don't really know what to do. Unfortunately, because it is panel 4, as soon as you get into the bus, it's one of the very first things that you see. I was hoping that, because you've got those little grab handles that sit above the long bench seat, that that would have been roughly where the grab handle is, and then problem solved. Sadly, it's the other side. So I've got to persevere with this, which means that this panel and I think one other panel where had a very minor defect, and I think that's now gone. But this panel particularly is posing a bit of a problem. The other thing I could do is turn it round and use the opposite side, but I don't want to do that. Because I've got to start from scratch again. I've got to put all the primers on. You're probably looking at about 6 coats of paint on that, and each, as we've gone through each level, has been rubbed down to get to the surface. But sadly, this is ugly little mark on it at the moment. Right, you may recall this panel. This is the one on the platform, and I test fitted it last week. I got my fingerprints all over it when it was dry, so it needs to be washed off and cleaned up, ready for a coat of paint. Although washing it off was going to pose a little bit of a problem later on, which was unexpected. I was really pleased with the paint finish on this, but unfortunately, I'm going to rub this down again. The other day, I think it was Monday, I came in here and I'd washed all these panels the previous week, and I thought I'll give these another wash, make sure they're all nice and clean and there's no contaminants landed on them, like dust and other bits and pieces. So I washed it down. It sat for about 3 hours, and I sprayed it, and it looked gorgeous. And then I went to move it, and if you can see there in the paint, just there was water hiding underneath this, and it's run all the way down the panel, all the way down for about, well, 2 foot in old money, I suppose. So yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do this again, regretfully. But the finish on it, other than that, is really very nice. You can actually see, you can see the reflection of the RT if you look carefully in there. So yeah, I'm overall fairly happy. This is the top coat, and I want to put another coat on the top of it. It'll be another top coat, and it'll be added with varnish. Only problem with the varnish, as I discovered on Monday, it takes a year. Well, not a year, but you know what I mean. It takes ages to go off. So yeah, that'll be fun, because as it gets warmer, we get a lot of bugs and flying insects in here, and they love drying paint. For some reason, they're attracted to it, and we end up with bugs stuck in the paint. Anyway, never mind. Let's move on and get this rubbed down. Right, so there we are. Minor problems that you get. Obviously, I'm not spraying in the best environment. If you get a bus sprayed or a car sprayed or whatever it is professionally, they put them in a special oven. And obviously I haven't got an oven there, so I do my best really, and they have to air dry. So you get all these little problems. I mean, a minor setback, but I'm quite pleased with the finish. And now this poses a problem with these ceiling panels, because later on you'll see what I got up to with the rest of the bus, because I might need to move on to other projects, and I'll come back to this very briefly towards the end of the video. Right, the reason for me not being able to progress much further with the front of the bus is this thing. Now, I had planned, as you know from previous editions, if you watched them, that I intended to get the bus started up, see that she runs, then kill it, as it were, and then do all the pipe work and other bits and pieces and paint up the bulkhead, remove the auxiliary tank and so on and so forth, and then put all that back again, so I knew that was finished, and then with it I would have put all the front of the bus back on. That's the bonnet, the wing, and a couple of minor panels that need to be refitted. But I can't do the bonnet, the wing and the other minor panels, because I will need access to put this fuel pump back on again. So the fuel pump is with Dave, who repairs our injectors and pumps and things over in Croxley, and he's a very knowledgeable guy, and I sent this over to him for repair, and he promptly dismantled it. The pump itself was completely seized, it was all rusty, and it needed to be properly overhauled. Now, as you might be aware, I did try and give it a little bit of gentle movement to see if I could get it started up, but the control rack that's in there, it's not visible in this shot, but it is there somewhere, was seized solid, and all of those little spring things, which are the valves that pump the fuel to the engine, were all jammed in the upright position. So it was quite lucky, according to Dave, that she didn't fire. So this is it now. It looks almost like a brand new pump, and I'm really pleased with this. That troublesome control rod's there as well. You can just about see that sitting above the camshaft. So yeah, I mean, this looks really nice now, and I am looking forward to getting that back and fitting it back onto the bus. Right, practically wrapping on the fuel system for now is this auxiliary tank. I found, I cleaned it out, I took it to work and put the hose for it, because there was so much grime in there. So there was loads of bits of rust and other detritus floating around in there, and spending all this money, because it's going to be a 4-figure job to get this pump fixed, Last thing I want is some bit of crud from here or elsewhere on the fuel system making its way back into the pump, because it will wreck all the damage that Dave's doing to fix it for me. So yep, took this to work, cleaned it all out, and I'm now pretty confident there's nothing else in there. So it's now prep time. You saw it earlier on, if you remember, towards the beginning of the video, it was grey. This is a sort of, I don't know, it's like a primer coat, but it's a heavy primer coat, so I can rub it down and it gets rid of all the scratches that were in the metalwork that were on there, so it should look quite tidy once it's been rubbed down. This will go into the black spray, because I've got that little grey thing you see sticking up there. That's the oil filler pipe. I took that out as well while I was working in that area, so that's going to go black, and then that little tank there will go black eventually. Right, behind me is RT3461, my RT. And today I'm going to start taking those panels off the near side. So it's quite a major project, and I'm sort of a bit of a gulp, really. Yeah, I'll see how I get on. It's my usual old thing, isn't it? But yeah, let's have fun with this. Right, so one of the very first things before I take anything apart I need to do is to mark up the panels and the bus. Now, the windows, yeah, you could probably work out which is which, but some of the panels and some of the beading are, I'll say fairly unique, but they need to go back in the right places. And once you've got a load of stuff laying on the floor, it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. Where does this go? And if you spend time putting it in the wrong place, you only got to do everything, undo everything and do it all again. So anyway, I've already drawn up, measured, counted the number of screws, all the bits of beading, all the panels that are on here. But I'm doing a sort of an add-on. You might see little bits scribbled all over the panels. So I'm doing some extra notes now, and there'll be additional notes as I take things off. If I find something that's unusual, I'll make a note of that. So yeah, so this is it, and we're just ready to start on it. And I am, like I said in the earlier bit, I'm really apprehensive about doing this. Right, savour that view, because it's not going to be like that for long. Right, the time has finally come to take this side of the bus out. Now, I had hoped, in my infinite wisdom, or perhaps bad planning, don't know which, that I was going to be able to do this last summer. It's now Easter 25, and I'm at least a year late in taking that side out, and I am very apprehensive. I got up here this morning early. As you all know, I like to get up at this place nice and early. I'll be with traffic on the motorway. But anyway, yeah, I got up here quite early this morning. I've done a couple of other little jobs, and now I'm going to have to turn to this. So I'm going to take the beading off, I'm going to take the panels down, and then we're going to have a look at the woodwork, see how bad it is. Last time, when I did the other side, it was about 25, 30 years ago, I took the off side out, and that was in a really bad state. Now, I don't know if this is going to be just as bad, or whether we're going to have a little bit of a break. So far, everything has gone wrong, hasn't it? So anyway, yep, this side's coming out today. I'm going to try and put the camera up on the side of the barn so I can shoot down the side on time lapse. But this is going to be incredibly slow, unfortunately. I reckon a good few days to get those panels off. But anyway, it's 9 o'clock in the morning now. Let's get started. Right, before we kick off with the time lapse, which goes far too quick, there are actually 4 bits of time lapse that I did over the several hours it took to get this side out. Unfortunately, the very first one went really quickly, so I learnt then to slow the thing down. So I do apologise if this one just whizzes by. Yeah, there will be an opportunity to see what is revealed as each of the panels come off later on. Yeah, so, and then this one just suddenly finished there. Unfortunately, I hadn't noticed that the camera on the first clip had stopped recording. So anyway, I didn't get that shot of me taking the first panel down, but we get this one. There you go. So that's the advert panel down. Now I'm working on the waist well. I get a visitor from the other side, comes in to have a little chat, but you can see I'm carrying on with my work. But yeah, there we are. So that is part of the near side coming out now. And it's going to go on for quite a while, but I wish I could work at this speed in real life, but I can't, unfortunately. I'll get things done before tea. Right, speaking of that friend who came in to have a chat with me, this is Richard. He's been with us for a number of years, and this little lorry is up for sale. So if you are interested in buying an AEC lorry, 9.5k he wants for this. He's looked after it for years, but and he carries around this old engine on the back, which is to make it look like it was a lorry still in service. But anyway, yeah, lovely little motor, that one. He's looked after that really for years and years, but now he, for various reasons, needs to put it up for sale. Right, so if you are interested in an AEC lorry that's been looked after for several years, drop me a line privately and I'll put you in touch with the owner. Time to get on with this project. Right, so back to the project. If I did this in real time, friends, you'd be here for another 12 hours. It took ages. I know it looks really quick when you're doing this. It's not actually, it's horrible. But anyway, yeah, there's another bit coming up in a few moments. Hi friends, this one and the one behind are interesting panels because what they are, they're plonk-on plates. The bus has obviously at some point has sustained some damage, so rather than take that panel off completely, they put a plate over the top so it saves filling it and what have you. And it's been riveted at the top and bottom there. Now, what would be interesting to see is what era this was done. Because if it was done during London Transport days, there will be a cream band just underneath. So the cream band here, Lincoln green here. If it's canary yellow there and Lincoln green there, then I know that that was done during London Country days. Now, it's not something unique to London Country. London Transport did it quite a lot, and that's probably where the idea came from, particularly on roofs, because roofs in the country area got bashed really hard. So rather than take the whole panel off and put, sort of fill it or whatever, they simply put a plonk-on plate over the top. I mean, it works. So, we're not running, or they weren't running preserved vehicles. They were just trying to make the buses look tidy and sort of okay for service. So that's why they did this. So I'm really looking forward to having a look to see what's underneath this panel and how much damage they did before they changed the panel. Right, we'll come back to those plonk-on plates later on. Brian Watkinson will point out, helpfully I'm sure, that London Transport didn't use filler, although London Country did, because I found filler in various places on here. So, they didn't have access to all the goodies that London Transport had, so they did the best they possibly could. But plonk-on plates are quite common on all sorts of buses. Brian also dropped me a line very kindly and said that plonk-on plates were put on when they were doing overhauls for other reasons other than just damage. But I'm hoping to see, once I take the panels off and I can then unrivet them and see what era they are. If they are cream, they were put on in London Transport days because that was a livery then. If it's canary yellow, and I suspect it is, then we know it was done in London Country days. But it'd be interesting just to find out. But so more on that at a later date. Right, we're in real-time speed now. You can see how slow I go. Right, and my trusty old Titan seat, which I used to kneel on, it's quite cream crackered, that seat now, but it's very useful because it saves you getting sore knees. Right, what I'm doing now, there are a couple of bits I need to be really careful about taking out. One bit would be the window pans, because they are practically impossible to get made or replaced. I've got a couple of spares, but they're not... they're not brand new, so they're just ones that have come off buses in scrap yards. But anyway, so one of the things I'm trying to do is get this beading off without damaging it. And also below are those mud spats. In addition to that, I need to go really carefully here because this is a wood rot, rusty old area. And if you give it too much of a hard pull, the good chances are you might actually be removing a little bit more than you planned for, and that did happen later on. So now what I'm doing here is this is a special sort of screwdriver with a sort of an impact end, so you can whack it with this hammer. So hence the reason. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to clean it out and also turn the screws at the same time. This is my power screwdriver, which is an impact driver, and sometimes it works, and it doesn't look like it's working now, but the really difficult ones, yeah, just check there wasn't any muck on it. The really difficult ones either have to be drilled out or carefully prized out. There, it's working now. So yeah, a couple of them are going to be a real problem, so it's going to have to be a drill out. But the other thing is, most of these screws have all turned to rust. The ones that are an absolute sod to get out, I discovered, were self-tapper screws. Someone's actually gone around that, putting self-tappers in, and the problem with the self-tappers is they don't want to come out, and when you do try to prise them out on the big main panels, they take a load of stuff with them as well, because they just cling on to dear life. So they're doing their job, but they had wood screws, so they only used self-tappers, I think, when the wood behind the panel had finally given in. So anyway, I'll let me carry on doing that, and we'll get on with clip number 4. So right, this is the very final part of the destruction of RT3461. Wheel arch is off, you saw me doing that just a minute ago, and now I've just got to get these main panels out. The windows that are going to remain for the time being, they're going to have to be done next weekend, and then that little indented special panel by the platform is going to remain, because I need to be very, very careful with them, because they are not replaceable, so it needs to come off intact. Right, so there's no going back now, and all that remains is this pile of stuff now on the desk, some of which I'm going to have to measure up. Some of the bits need to be put to one side because they're going to be salvaged for other things or kept for putting back on the bus again. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through some of the clips of what it looks like. I'll try and give a bit of a narrative, but I'm going to have to play some crappy music in there as well, because there's quite a few of those pictures. Right, so let's kick off. Now we've got the panels off, the underneath is revealed in all its former glory, maybe. Yeah, I know it looks bad, and if you've never seen an RT with all the panels off, this is what you're looking at. A lot of RTs, they look really lovely on the rally scene, but the moment you start to delve a little bit deeper, you start finding these kind of problems. The first giveaway is wood screws coming out the side of the bus. That's normally the first giveaway, so it means the wood is rotting out. So if you're going to do it, you're going to do an RT, you plan to do this work, you've really got to be prepared for this. This isn't as bad as the near side of the off side of the bus. The off side was terrible. When I took the panels out, just all the wood fell out. There's a bit of rust in there as well. There's a bit of rust on some of the plates. It's all doable. It's not, I mean, it looks bad, but it's all doable. I'm just going to hold on this shot for a second. This is the wheel arch. Remember I said before about going a bit clumsily with it and pulling it out too heavily. Yeah, this part had almost gone completely, and this is common. I had the same problem on the offside of the RT where it actually disappeared before there wasn't anything left. At least there is some semblance of order here, and if you look at the picture it looks like it's okay, but it isn't. That dog rail is the only thing, that's the green bar at the bottom, which is actually holding this part of the wheel arch in place. Right, so my next task is to get up there this weekend and take the windows out, and then that panel that you saw just a few moments ago, and also have a general clean up and get as much of the dust out of the way. And then I'm going to make an assessment as to how much I need to do. I noticed that there's a bit of wood under one of the upper deck windows when I was taking the advert panel down that needs a little bit of work as well. So that's got to be sorted. So as I say, this weekend is going to be tidy it up and just make some assessments of what work we need to do and a plan of action. Like I say, don't be surprised if you've never seen one of these before. That's what they're like. This bus has been kept undercover for well in excess of 35 years. In fact, I've had this 40 years, and this bus has been undercover for, I would say, 39 years of that. So this problem was extant when it came out of service in 1977. So if you do go out, if you should ever go out and buy an RT, they're a lovely bus, But you know, once you start noticing the problems I just mentioned to you earlier on, screws coming out and maybe one or two other little things that go wrong with them, expect, if you take a panel off, to see this. If you're not looking, if you're going to preserve a bus and you're not looking for this level of detail, a Routemaster is a very good bet, because they are made largely of aluminium and they don't rot to this extent. Bearing in mind the RT was designed before World War II, and once World War II had finished, they restarted production of the RT with the post-war RTs using very similar production techniques to what they'd done pre-war. But obviously, you know, as the RT production was well in swing, the Routemaster was already being devised. So as the last RTs were appearing in London, the very first Routemasters were making an appearance. Right, before we go, let me leave you with this. This is a bit of Rexine that I found behind one of the panels. So yeah, a little sliver of the original past of the vehicle. So at some point they've replaced the Rexine, and this little piece has just dropped down inside. So there we are. Right, well, anyway, well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was a bumper weekend, and it was one of those weekends where I had to take a big, deep intake of breath to do this. But anyway, and there's a lot of work to go on to get this sorted as well. And there's, as you know, there's still some of the old projects that's hanging around that I need to fix as well once I get all the bits and pieces back. So anyway, thanks very much for this. YouTube, as usual, will recommend some other videos that you may be interested in watching. Thanks very much, and see you next time.